Thưa mẹ, con là người Việt Nam, luân lưu từ dòng máu.
Hi, my name is Anam Habib, and this is Nguyen.
Hi.
We're at her house on the 4th of February, and we're just going to interview her so we can find out how she became a part of Fremont. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Nam.
So first of all, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I'm a senior at Irvington High School. I'm 17 years old, and I've been here for about most of my life.
So what is your ethnic background?
I'm Vietnamese.
Can you tell us a little bit about your parents? Were they born here or in Vietnam?
No, my parents were actually born in Vietnam, and they lived in different worlds.
So how did your parents move here?
With my mother, she had it easier than my dad, definitely. My grandfather was Lieutenant Colonel of the Air Force of South Vietnam at the time, and he was able to actually come over.
That's your grandfather?
Yeah, he actually got to come over here first. He came here first and was able to sponsor his family over 10 years after. It took them a while, but back in Vietnam, they lived a better life because since he was Lieutenant Colonel, he had more benefits. Like this picture here, they lived in an Air Force base camp for most of their lives. My mother and her siblings and her mother. My dad, he came from a poorer family. He wasn't able to come over here with the rest of his family, not like my mother did. He when the communists came to South Vietnam, he and a lot of other people tried to escape Vietnam. They were known as the boat people. He attempted to escape Vietnam about 8 times, and on the 8th trial he was able to escape. The first place he ever settled in was Malaysia, and even though he settled in Malaysia, it wasn't the best experience, but it was better than actually being in Vietnam. He tried contacting his family members, but he couldn't. It was really hard for him because he was only 17 at the time. He was our age. He had to escape from his parents. Before he left, he even had an argument with my grandfather. They were begging him to stay, begging him that, oh, don't leave us, don't leave us. We need you here to take care of us. Like my mother, my dad was also the eldest child, and they couldn't bear to have their son leave. And when my dad did, it seemed like he never came back. And when our family came back to Vietnam, that was the first time he's seen them since he left. By the time they reached America, just like any other immigrant at that time that came over, it was hard for them because they had to start over. Unlike my mom, my dad didn't go to California. He actually went to Pennsylvania first.
So how did your parents meet?
Well, my dad was probably one of the few people that actually pushed the American churches to actually have a Vietnamese mass for us. And since my dad was music oriented, he decided that he wanted to be the choir director of that Vietnamese mass. And people from all over, Santa Rosa, San Jose, Sacramento, they all came together just for that mass. At the time, they didn't have Vietnamese churches, so the only church that did magneted everyone to come together to have that mass. And my mother was in that choir, and everyone kind of pushed her friends, and my dad's friends kind of pushed them together, and that's how we met each other.
And then they got married. How long?
I guess they were dating for about a few years until they decided to get married.
And is that the wedding dress?
Yeah, this is the wedding dress. For us, we would usually have a reception first. The engagement reception is one. The brides would wear this during the wedding reception. Both families would come together. Everyone would meet at the bride's house. The mother-in-law and the mother would exchange jewelry and pass them on. Jewelry that they had during their weddings, they would pass it on to her. For my mom, it was different because her mother-in-law was back in Vietnam. It was kind of interesting because at the same time my parents were having their wedding here, they had a reception back there in Vietnam at the same time.
For them?
Yeah, so they were celebrating 2 different locations but at the same time. It was kind of cool when my parents told me that.
So you were born in Santa Clara. How did you move to Fremont?
Well, after my parents had my sister, they decided that it would be best to locate us to a safer town, a bigger place than Santa Clara. I think the first day of Fremont was actually quite welcoming. A lot of the neighbors embraced us, wanted to make sure we felt like at home. Our house was probably the most rundown place ever, and it took us a while to actually get back on our feet and things like that. And actually going to school here was a lot different for me because I didn't know English that well, and I had to adjust to make friends. I don't think I made friends right away. A lot of the kids thought I was extremely quiet because I didn't know how to communicate with them, and when I did, they thought it was funny because I couldn't tell a sentence from a sentence or how to address a person or anything like that. I think I probably had two closest friends, Crystal and Bonnie. They stuck by me. They knew I couldn't communicate well with others, but they had patience. They had patience to actually stick around long enough. I think I liked school fairly well, but there were times where I would come home crying because some kid threatened me, making jokes, and I didn't understand them quite well. And my mom was extremely overprotective and thought it would be best that I should just stay home sometimes. Well, my parents, the other education they ever got here was college. They never knew what high school was. They expected it to be just like elementary school. You take your classes, you get your A's. They didn't expect SAT scores. They didn't expect prom night. They didn't expect teachers to be sending out bad notes or anything about you or anything like that. They expected it to be a normal school experience, but it was a lot different because it was probably the first time I had to adjust again. I think my life in Fremont so far is really great. With all my other relatives and friends that are in different cities, they always have something to complain about. They always say that, oh, the people over here, over where I'm living at, isn't so friendly. There's always so much to cope with and things like that. But over here, it's like a big family community. That's how I see it.
Okay, thank you, Anne.
Welcome.
Thưa mẹ, con là người Việt Nam, luân lưu từ dòng máu điêu tàn. Thưa mẹ, con là người da vàng, màu da cô kiếp